Hello everyone. Welcome to IS Baba's rapid revision series of 500 high probable topics for prelims 2020. I'm Preetham Reddy and I'll be dealing 15 important topics which are very crucial for prelims examination this year in each session. So our first topic of the day is anti-defection law. We would have read many news articles dealing with political crisis in different states. That's the reason anti-defection law is a very important topic. So first important point is the 10 schedule. So 10 schedule deals with disqualification. So it deals with disqualification of legislators. So it deals with disqualification of legislators on grounds of defection. On the grounds of defection by the presiding officer. So I am going to repeat again. 10 schedule lays down the process by which legislators may be disqualified on the grounds of defection by the presiding officer. The second important point is to remember about 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. So 10th schedule was inserted in 1985 by 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. The 10th schedule also provides that any question regarding disqualification arising out of defection is to be decided by the presiding officer. In simple terms, the final deciding authority would be presiding officer. Fourth important point is Quijotto-Holohan case. So initially 10th schedule had mentioned that the deciding authority or the final decision of the presiding officer could not be questioned in any court. However, in 1993 Quijotto-Holohan case, Supreme Court declared that the decision of the presiding officer could be questioned in any court. So now the decision of the presiding officer could be questioned. Supreme Court also held that the presiding officer would function as a tribunal. Hence, his decision, like that of any other tribunal, is subject to judicial review. Second important topic of the day is whip and the office of the whip. So whip in parliamentary parlance is a written order. So it's a written order that party members be present for an important vote or that they vote on a particular way. In India, all parties can issue whip. And in India, usually parties appoint their senior member as a whip. Now, this particular point is very important, office of whip. So, office of whip is not mentioned in constitution, nor it is mentioned in rules of house, nor it is mentioned in the parliamentary statute. So office of whip is not mentioned in the constitution, nor it is mentioned in the rules of the house, nor mentioned in the parliamentary statute. However, it is just based on the convention of the parliamentary government. So next important point is regarding the function. So whip serves as an assistant floor leader. Whip also ensures the attendance of the party members. Whip helps in securing support and he regulates and monitors the behavior of the party members. So it is important to note that members should follow whip's directions or else disciplinary action can be taken. And one important point is voting against the whip can lose membership of the house under 10th schedule. So next important topic is difference between disqualification and resignation. So very first point what we have to remember is a disqualified member cannot become a minister without getting elected again. However, a resigned member can be inducted into an alternative cabinet without being a member. Second important point is accepting a resignation is a very simple function. So accepting a resignation is a simple function of being satisfied whether if it is voluntary or not. While disqualification is decided on the based on evidence and inquiry. So third important point is regarding the constitutional articles. So Article 164 subclause 1b and Article 190 subclause 3b. So Article 164 subclause 1b deals with the vacancy of seat of MLS due to disqualification of MLS. And Article 190 subclause 3b deals with the vacancy of seats due to resignation of MLS. So usually MLS resign by writing addressing it to the speaker or chairman, and after resignation is accepted by them their seats become vacant. So next important topic is the relationship between like anti-defection and judicial review and Article 212. So Article 212 is important because of the recent Rajasthan political crisis also. So we'll see what is Article 212. So Article 212 of the Constitution provides for courts not to inquire. So courts not to inquire into proceedings. So court should not inquire into proceedings of the legislature. So it is important that Article 212 of the Constitution provides for courts not to inquire into proceedings of the legislature. And also Supreme Court held in Quixote Holhan case that Supreme Court specifically barred any judicial intervention prior to the decision making stage. So it is important to note that Supreme Court barred judicial intervention, especially prior to the decision making stage. So two things you have to remember, that Article 212, so courts not to inquire into proceedings of the legislature, and Quixote Holland case, Supreme Court barred judicial intervention prior to the decision making stage of the speaker. Okay. So in simple, we have to remember judicial review cannot cover proceedings of the legislature under Article 212 of the Constitution. So next important topic of the day is Malabar Rebellion or Mopla Riots of the 1921. So this 2021 marks 100 years. So that's the reason this topic is important. So Mopla Rebellion is nothing but it was a culmination of a series of riots by Moplas. So these Moplas were Muslim peasants who were present in Kerala. So this rebellion was against the British and the Hindu landlords in Malabar. So Hindu landlords, especially Nambudiris and Nayars. So the resistance started against British colonial rule and feudal system. So initially the resistance started against the feudal system and colonial rule. However, later on it ended into communal violence between Hindu versus Muslims. Okay, that's the reason it is important to remember this particular rebellion. One, it is because of 100 years, and the resistance which initially started as a like fight against the British colonial rule and the feudal system, later on it ended into communal violence. And this particular Mopla riots is also considered as the extended version of the Khilafat movement. So these three leaders are very important to remember. So Varian Kunnat, Kunja Ahmad Haji, Sitikoya Tangal and Ali Musliar are the main leaders of this rebellion. So try to remember these leader names. Next topic important for us is Bhima Koregaon Battle of 1818. So this year marks 202nd anniversary. Okay, so this battle was fought between East India Company and Peshwa faction of the Maratha Confederacy. So one unique aspect to remember here is only few hundreds of Mahar soldiers of the East India Company and who were backed by British, so they defeated a very massive Peshwa army which was led by Peshwa Bajirao II. So this is the crucial aspect here. The Mahar soldiers, who were very few in numbers, defeated massive Peshwa army, and these Mahars were led by the British, and they defeated Peshwa army under Peshwa Bajirao. Finally, like Vijay Stambh, that is victory pillar, was erected by the East India Company in memory of those who fought the battle. And one more unique point what we have to remember is, usually Dalits who follow B.R. Ambedkar view this battle as a victory of Mahars over injustice and torture which were meted out to them by the Brahminical Peshwas. So next important topic for us is the Hagia Sophia. So Hagia Sophia was in news because Turkey's High Court allowed the conversion of Hagia Sophia from a museum into a mosque. So Turkey's highest court allowed this conversion of Hagia Sophia from a museum into a mosque. So Hagia Sophia is nearly 1500 years old. It is also listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Okay. So Hagia Sophia was originally a cathedral. So you have to remember that Hagia Sophia was originally a cathedral during the Byzantine Empire. So later this Hagia Sophia was converted or turned into a mosque. So it was turned into a mosque, especially when this Constantinople fell to Sultan Mehmet of the Ottoman forces. Later on, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who was the founder of Turkey, ordered that Hagia Sophia be converted into museum. So you have to remember this, Hagia Sophia. Next important topic for us is Operation Twist. So Operation Twist is RBI's monetary policy tool, and major objective of this Operation Twist is to bring down the interest rates. So to bring down the interest rates. So why RBI is using this mechanism? So it aims to bring down interest rates so that it can boost domestic demand. So it can boost domestic demand. It can kickstart investment and also reviving the slowing economy. Okay. So what is the unique thing about this Operation Twist is RBI will conduct purchase and sale of government securities under open market operations. Okay. In simple words, central bank will buy long term securities or bonds. Okay, it buys long term securities or bonds. At the same time, it sells short term securities or bonds. So by doing these two operations, RBI will try to influence the market interest rate, and final objective is to reduce the interest rates. So next important topic for us is long term repo operation. So long term repo operation is also a RBI's monetary policy tool. And in this long term repo operation, you have to remember that RBI will offer money to the banks for almost like 1 year to 3 year duration. So this is the major difference. So difference between long-term repo rate and LAF or MSF, that is liquidity adjustment facility and marginal standing facility. So what is the difference between these two is in liquidity adjustment facility and marginal standing facility, usually RBI offers money to banks ranging from 1 to 28 days. However, in long-term repo operation, RBI offers money almost like 1 to 3 years. Okay, so RBI offers money to bank at the repo rate. Okay, at the prevailing repo rate. So why RBI is offering money 1 to 3 year duration is again the objective is to reduce the interest rates. So reduce the interest rates. So finally, what is the difference between targeted LTRO and long-term repo rate? So targeted, as the name says, so RBI will offer banks money to which should be targeted to certain sectors or certain areas like investment grade corporate bonds, commercial paper, non-convertible debentures, etc. Okay. So next important topic is Banks Board Bureau. So Banks Board Bureau is an autonomous recommendatory body. So this body consists of eminent professionals and officials. So they are expected to make recommendations for the appointment of directors and also non-executive chairpersons for public sector banks and state-owned financial institutions and also insurance companies. Okay, so this bank board bureau will have experts, professionals and officials, and they would recommend appointment of directors and chairpersons for public sector banks and state owned financial institutions and insurance companies. So you have to remember PJ Nayak committee, and PJ Nayak committee was the one which actually recommended to set up this banks board bureau. And it is also important that the Ministry of Finance takes the final decision in consultation with the PMO's office, that is Prime Minister's office. Okay, so finally, Bank Board Bureau is a public authority defined in Right to Information Act 2005. So next important topic is this report, money laundering and illegal wildlife trade report. So it is the first report by the FATF which is dealing with the illegal wildlife trade. Also this report is important because this is the first global report on illegal wildlife trade. So FATF has described that illegal wildlife trade is a global threat. So FATF has described that illegal wildlife trade as a global threat because it has linkages with terrorism financing. So let's see about FATF, some facts which are important for prelims. So FATF is a intergovernmental body. So first thing what we have to remember is FATF is a intergovernmental body. Second important thing what we have to remember is it was established in 1989, and it is an initiative of G7. Okay, so second important thing, it was established in 1989 and it's an initiative of G7. Third important thing, that FATF is not a part of UN body, so it is not a part of UN body. However, it functions out of OECD, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So FATF is not a part of UN body, but it functions out of OECD. And obviously we would have read about FATF and we know its objective. It is the global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog, right? So in 2001, the FATF's mandate was expanded to include terrorism financing. So let's see next point, what is the relationship between India and FATF. So in 2006, India became observer of FATF, and in 2010 India became a full-time member. And one important like information what we have to know, which is in news again, is like FATF has kept Pakistan on grey list. Okay, next important point is the Quad. So Quad is a quadrilateral security dialogue. So this quadrilateral security dialogue is nothing but an informal security dialogue, and it is between four important democracies. So Quad is nothing but an informal security dialogue of four important democracies, that is India, Australia, US and Japan. And major objective of this Quad is to ensure and support free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. So you have to remember this particular objective, that is free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific objective. So Quad is very important to contain China's rise in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, so the idea of the Quad was first mooted by PM like Japanese PM Shinzo Abe. You can remember this point also. So next important thing or important topic for us is the Malabar exercise, and this Malabar exercise is annual military exercise. So it's an annual military exercise between US, Japan and India. So usually this particular Malabar exercise is held in Indian Pacific Ocean, and it is held alternatively. That is, if this year it is held in Indian Ocean, next year it will be held in Pacific Ocean. And it is important to note that Malabar exercise initially started in 1991 as a bilateral event. So it was started in 1992 as a bilateral event between India and USA. Later on, Japan was included in 2015. Now there are talks and news articles dealing with inclusion of Australia, whether they have to include Australia in the Malabar exercise. And it is important that after years of reluctance, India has said it was open to Australia's inclusion in the Malabar as an observer. So India is open for this decision, so we are yet to see. So next important thing is places in news. So these places are very important, the Golan Heights and the Western Bank. So you can see in this figure, so Golan Heights is situated almost near the southern western Syria, and you can see here it is a Israeli occupied, Rocky Plateau region in West Asia. So the second important point what we have to remember is to remember the Sea of Galilee is near the Golan Heights, and the rainwater from the Golan Heights, it feeds the Jordan River. So the rainwater from the Golan's catchment feeds into the Jordan River. So you have to remember this Golan Heights, which is very strategic and political region, and it is right now occupied by Israel. Second important region is the West Bank. Now this West Bank is a landlocked territory in West Asia. So all these places are in West Asia, and this West Bank is a landlocked territory in West Asia, and this West Bank forms the bulk of Palestinian territory. Okay, so the West Bank shares boundaries with Israel. It shares boundary with Jordan, and also it touches Jordan River and also the Dead Sea. So we have to remember that West Bank contains a significant coastline along the west bank of the Dead Sea, and it borders Israel and Jordan. Next important region is the Gaza Strip. So this Gaza Strip is located on the eastern coast of Mediterranean Sea, and this Gaza Strip borders Egypt and Israel. And you people have to remember that Gaza makes up part of the Palestinian territory, which also includes West Bank. So Palestinian territory will include Gaza Strip and also the West Bank. Okay, these three places are crucial for the examination. So next important thing is to know about the Oslo Accord and the Abraham Accord. Two-state solution was already asked in UPSC previous year questions. Okay, so two-state solution deals with the Israel and Palestinian peace agreements and peace solution. So next we have to remember regarding the Oslo and the Abraham Accord. So Oslo Accord is a series of agreements between both Israel and Palestine. So we have to, first point what we have to remember is it is a series of agreements between Israel and Palestine. Okay, whereas Abraham Accord deals with Israel and UAE. Okay, and this Oslo Accord was signed in 1990s, and it talks about Israel and Palestinian issue. Whereas Abraham Accord, it is dealing with UAE and Israel peace agreement, and we have to remember two important points under Abraham Accord. One is that UAE should recognize the state of Israel and establish formal diplomatic relations with it. And the second important thing what Abraham Accord states is that Israel should halt all its controversial plan to annex the Palestinian West Bank. So we will be dealing in next session almost like all the important 15 topics. And thank you for watching the video. And if you have any queries, do comment below and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.